Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right. Hey, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where I talk with CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, authors, all kinds of interesting folks from companies and organizations like YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, OpenTable, Axe Software, and many more. I'm also the co-founder with this gentleman here who's on the right of me, depending on how you're looking at this. He's the co-founder of Rise25 with me, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And I'm excited today because we're going to do another live episode here where my guest is Dr. Jeremy Weisz, my business partner since 2015. He has been featuring top entrepreneurs with video interviews since the year 2010. It was really an early adopter
earlier
of this.
than that.
Yeah, 2009,
like 20,
I think.
Yeah, 2008 and 9, yeah.
And you have featured the founders or CEOs of P90X, Atari, Einstein Bagels, Mattel, the Orlando Magic, and many more, all at Inspired Insider. You can check out inspiredinsider.com. Also has run and operated multiple different businesses, including e-commerce businesses, online directories, a chiropractic massage facility in Chicago. And fun fact about Jeremy, he wears basketball shorts under literally anything. And if you ask him why, the reason is because he's wants to be prepared in case a basketball game breaks out at any time. So before we get into that first,
John, I've been at dinners and they're like, "Pull your pants down." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Let me." I didn't know what they're referring to. Let me see if it's true. I'm like, "All right." Like rooms full of mastermind. Like there could be 30 people. Brian Kurtz. Shout out to Brian Kurtz. He'll be like in front of them. Like there was a table of maybe 30 entrepreneurs. He's like, "Show us." I'm like, "Really? Right now?" It was like a nice restaurant. I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "Oh, you're right. You're not lying." So anyway,
way to keep it classy.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by Rise25, which helps B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with W podcasts and content marketing. If you're listening to this and you've ever thought, "Hey, should I start a podcast? That sounds like the hip thing to do." Well, guess what? It still is getting hotter than ever. And so what we do is we specialize in helping B2B businesses who have a high client lifetime value to get ROI with the podcast. So if you want to learn more about that and get some inspiration and ideas about how to get clients, referrals, and some of the best friendships of your life from a podcast, go to rise25media.com, or you can also email support@rise25media.com. All right. So Jeremy, the subject matter of this quick interview is, do downloads matter? Especially in today's day and age. Do downloads matter? Take it over, my friend.
Yeah, it is the hip thing to do. I want to say, yes, they matter a lot if you don't want to focus 100% on the best, most efficient ROI. But, we get that question a lot. It's the most common question we get. How do I get downloads and subscribers? And here's the thing. That will come. That will come later. It's a secondary benefit, a tertiary benefit of what you do when ultimately what we're a big proponent of is really the strategy and focusing on who are the best people relationships in your universe that you want to give to, right? And we take people through a Dream 100 process. What is the answer to that question? And it's highly targeted on giving to your best relationships. That doesn't mean, download subscribers won't be beneficial later on. But if you focus in on your dream 10, 50, 100, then the people in that industry will be interested in that topic. And so the downloads and subscribers will come from that as a tertiary benefit.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
But that's not the best. What we find, it's not easily replicatable, right? It's not easily done. And focusing in on the most important thing is the top level relationships in the industry.
Let me ask you a question a different way, because this is a lot of times kind of the way that people get at it is. So, there's a lot of famous podcasters out there, the Mark Marons of the world, the Joe Rogans of the world, and people are starting podcasts every day and they want to be Joe Rogan. They want to be at the top of the heap. What do you say to those people?
Do you want to do a 3-hour interview? No, I actually watched
psychedelics.
I watched a Joe Rogan interview last night. I love his stuff. It was 2 hours and 48 minutes. Now, I do listen 2 times speed. And he does it off of eclectic background. But there is our friend Jordan Harbinger says it's like hard work and luck, all wrapped into one. And you have to hit. Part of it is luck, hitting it at a stride, hitting a certain point. Now it's luck over 10 years, right? It's, overnight success after 10 or 20 years for people. So they see Joe Rogan and they see Mark Maron and they've been doing it forever and building up. And what they don't see, Joe Rogan's on the UFC. He's been on, reality shows. He's a comedian. He's also, an announcer at the UFC. So he's all over the place. It's not just his podcast that's given him the exposure. Right. It's all these other avenues and channels. And they just see, he got famous in Sulfur or whatever it was, Spotify, say supposedly over $100 million. But it wasn't just the podcast. There was so many pieces to that puzzle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how easy is it to replicate that?
Yeah, I say it's getting more difficult, more challenging, especially as deep pockets are moving into podcasting, because bigger, media companies, NPR, ESPN, CBS, you name it, Disney, these companies are moving very quickly into podcasting. They're seeing opportunities, and the only way that they have to monetize their businesses are through downloads, getting downloads and then selling ads or sponsorships, or using it kind of as a branded podcast to promote their parks maybe, or something like that, or their other properties. But that's very difficult to compete with that. Very difficult. Or another way to put it, I think, is, even if go after Joe Rogan, that's fine. Maybe you'll become as popular as him. But if you don't, then it should still be profitable. I say that to people all the time. Like, we want it to be profitable, even if you don't. Because the problem is, a lot of times people set that goal for themselves, and 6 months later, they're not getting the downloads that they thought they would, whatever the number that would have been. Yeah. And they, so then they get discouraged and they want to give up,
And here's another take on that, John. And it's like, not just subscribers and downloads, some really smart people we know do their podcast if no one's listening, not only because the relationships are valuable for their business, but because for business development and personal development for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, well, I have this issue in my business, and let's say it's an HR issue. You could get some of the top people in the world, profile their thought leadership, and put them on this platform, and you're learning directly from them, asking the exact questions you want to know about. Mm-hmm. How valuable is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of so many of our friends like Ian Garlic or, Dan Cashel, who've used podcasts really effectively in order to move into new areas or make great connections, build great relationships, acquire customers, get referrals, all that kind of stuff. And, great. Listeners are great. They hope they get a ton of downloads, but they still want it. Even if you don't, it still should and could and will absolutely be tremendously powerful as a tool for you. So, and thank you, Felix, for being here. Felix is listening in from the Latin Podcast Awards out of Montgomery, Alabama. Haven't heard of that before, but I'll definitely have to check it out. So check out the Latin Podcast Awards.
Nice. I'm going to go on a tangent for a second. You're not going to like the tangent.
Probably not.
So we'll sum up that conversation for a second. Why downloads, do downloads matter? No, our overall opinion is tertiary, yes, but the main thing is for just giving your best relationships. But it's also, John, deeper. It's leaving a legacy for yourself. It's also just sometimes even I go off of that. The dream list is not just for business, but it's personal. And it can be your childhood heroes. It could be an athlete you've admired forever, which is motivation for you, or a comedian or whoever. And I was talking to our friend Steve Gum this morning, and I said, I sent what's equivalent to, if you're in college or wherever, you send a drunk text. Okay. Now, I said to Steve, I was studying in the library till 3 a.m. You know me, right? I've been studying in the library till 3 a.m. So I really didn't drink. So I would come back in the college dorms, coming back from the library at 3 when everyone else was, this is like on a Saturday night, by the way, and everyone else is getting back from the bars, and then we would hang out. So I didn't really send any drunk texts, but I sent a sleep deprived emails last night. Which is
that's like the dorky version of drunk text, by the way.
So I was literally
like the dorky suburban version of drunk text. I got really out of control and I sent a sleep deprived email. Oh my God, I'm off the hook. My wife is gonna have to lock me up.
The drunk text is what you regret the next morning. The sleep deprived email you could also regret the next morning, but
mild regret. It's not like abject embarrassment. It's just like a little bit uncomfortableness, really.
And so I was watching Joe Rogan. I'm like, I was watching some comedians. I'm like, I love comedy and you love comedy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I would love to have these guys on some of these people on the podcast. So I start researching. This is 4 a.m. Okay. 4 a.m. I'm like, why you?
Everyone should know that Jeremy doesn't sleep.
I'm trying to be better about that. But so I'm researching these comedians and emailing. I'm like, why am I even doing this? John would not approve of this right now. But I just I'm like researching these comedians' emails. I'm like, maybe 1 or 2 of the people I really admire, that bring me joy. And so anyways, I went down that path. Just back to say, you could get just some of your dream guests, childhood heroes, or people that you really admire on, not just,
absolutely. And you can develop a relationship with them. I mean, our friend Brendan Lemon he's a comic, he's a comedian, and he's going to be on my podcast soon because he has a book coming out, and it's a nice thing to be able to, deliver that additional value to people. Another one of our clients, Andrea Herrera, Lead Like a Woman show. She's doing an amazing job.
Andrea Houston.
Sorry.
Andrea Herrera. We did feature her both on our podcast.
Yes. Thank you. But yeah, absolutely. Just doing an amazing job of building connections with people in the field. So look up these shows and you can see how other people are utilizing these tools. The other thing I was going to say about the downloads piece is, Apple, depending on what stats you read, 50 to 70% of all downloads come through Apple, and Apple does not release download numbers at all. They have some charts up to 100 or 200 or something like that, but no download numbers. So if you go on LinkedIn, I've done this before, and you search for top 100 podcasts, you get about 9,000 results. I'm pretty sure mathematically that's impossible. So someone's lying, right? So the truth is no one actually knows your download numbers. So the question then becomes, what do downloads do for you? If no one can know what the actual truth is, what do downloads do for you? What they do for you is they establish credibility or social proof for someone who's deciding whether they're going to say yes to whether it's worth their time to be on your podcast. And if you're going out and you're trying to get Oprah Winfrey and stuff like that, it's going to be harder. But for most people, it's a better use of their time to start with people who already know, like, and trust you, and then go in concentric circles outward from there and get direct referrals from other people who know, like, and trust you, who will vouch for you. And it's not that challenging to get great people to be on your show, even if you're just getting started, even if you don't have a ton of downloads. And eventually you will build an audience, you will build a listenership, and you'll get people that are interested in and engaged as your audience. The other thing is, as things are becoming kind of multi-channel, and right now we're broadcasting this live across both LinkedIn and Facebook. And so you've got communities on different social channels that are going to be consuming that content, even beyond a download, right? So it's actually other ways of people engaging and giving exposure to your audience, giving exposure to your guests. And so the download number it's not, it's kind of like, it's a raw metric that people kind of default to and they think it matters, but it's a vast oversimplification, I think.
We're going to end each of these with our favorite
quote. Okay.
From either Adam Sandler movie, David Spade, Chris
Farley.
Everyone who's
listening to this should know that Jeremy Weisz is a absolute movie savant. He knows every single detail about every single movie made, caveat, as long as that movie was made between 1991 and 1995 and stars Chris Farley and David Spade. If that's the case, he knows every single detail, and it's like encyclopedic knowledge.
And I want to just give a shout out to SEM Rush, because you mentioned, Apple they don't, publish download numbers, and it made me think SEM Rush allows you basically to plug in a website and see like every detail about websites, traffic, backlinks, and everything. So our friends over at SEM Rush, you can check them out. I love it. If you want to do like just feel like you did a trick to someone, you can just start spouting out, have SEM Rush on and just talk about their website. Like, how do you know you have a camera in my room? No, use SEM Rush.
Yeah.
But, so your favorite.
Wrap it up with, all right, you wrap it up with your favorite time.
Well, yeah, but I want you to say, I would like to know your favorite Adam Sandler, and from an Adam Sandler movie,
this isn't
David
really
Spade
okay.
movie.
This is not a movie quote, but I got to go with Fat Man in a Little Coat.
No, that is a movie. That is a movie quote.
No, wasn't it
in Tommy Boy?
I stand corrected.
Okay.
I thought it was a Saturday Night Live sketch.
It's the point where David Spade is looking and the ladies swimming, skinny dipping in the pool, and then maybe that was, I don't know if that was the one.
Saying, people?
Or he knocked on the door and he said, "Housekeeping." You know that one, right? And then
yeah.
I
don't think that's the scene. Does anyone listen? Does anyone listen?
If anyone knows which scene, but it is, I think it's like, Richard, your briefcase is over here. I was just working on some documents. He's looking at the lady skinny dipping.
They can probably stream it on Netflix
here,
or they can listen to you reenacting it. But
favorite quote. I'm going to go with the favorite quote. Favorite quote. One of my favorite quotes is, "I'll tell you why I suck as a salesman." And if you could picture the scene where Chris Farley, Tommy Boy's at the diner and gets the chicken wings. Tommy likes wingy. Okay, so listen to that one. Why I suck as a salesman. Mm-hmm. If you're in business or marketing or sales, you'll love that.
If you do sales, that's a good
turnaround, one. John. That's the turnaround scene where he starts selling more. That scene.
And what's the message is he's passionate about it, right? He cared about it. I think that's what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So go check that out, everyone. You want to learn more about putting together a podcast of your own, having your own podcast, you can contact us at support@rise25media.com or rise25.com. You can learn more about Dr. Jeremy Weisz on LinkedIn or at rise25.com/about. It was a pleasure. Hope you all are well. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.